What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Gary's Basement. Today, we are moving into our coverage of the Western Conference, starting with the first half of the Central Division. Today, we'll be covering the teams the Chicago Blackhawks, Colorado Avalanche, Dallas Stars, and Minnesota Wild. So it should be a fun episode. So without further ado, let's get into it. Our first team today that we will be covering is the Chicago Blackhawks, which is my favorite team. So I have a lot to say about them, but we'll start with your guys' opinion on where the Blackhawks stand heading into the season.
I think the Blackhawks can be confident in one thing. They have space to work with, and they're making slow progress toward becoming a playoff team again. Chicago has had a long dynasty for quite some time. I remember the years when they would basically won the cup every other year, but obviously they're not the team right now. The biggest thing for Chicago this year is most likely going to be goaltending. Defense isn't really there either, but Connor Bedard is going to continue to carry the team what little way he can. I could almost see that Tyler Bertuzzi and Teuvo Teravainen maybe have something of an interesting year. Obviously, they're on the tail ends of their careers. Wow, that's not true. They're only 30, so they got room, but they're not as good as they used to be. So there's long story short, Chicago has players that have the potential to be really good again, who have been good in the past, and yeah, kind of make some noise.
And you have that group of guys, the people who aren't necessarily as good as they used to be, but you also have the young guys who are coming up and going to hit their peak. You got two defensemen, Vlasic and Kaiser, two very tall defensemen. Love to see that on the defensive end. Very young as well. Very young on the defensive side. Spencer Knight as well in goal. He's a great goaltender. I think he'll play great. I mean, you have Connor Bedard on the offensive end. Obviously going to perform. I think you like where you're at. You were rebuilding a few years ago, and now you're here. I think you're happy with where you're going. You're going in the right direction.
I think it's cool being a southpaw that the Blackhawks have only 3 righties, and all of their forwards are lefties.
It's a really good, encouraging lineup to look at for the Blackhawks. You got Bernard, Donato, some younger guys. Donato's getting a little more up there, but he's still a younger guy. That are really putting up the points for them. And you still got those older guys, Tyler Bertuzzi, Nick Foligno, the guys who have been in the league for a while, and those are the type of guys that I can see like having a breakout year. You can't count on that, but I feel like there could be a year here or there that you see one of them pop up.
Yeah, I think a lot of people could see the progress being made for Chicago in like the rebuild and thought this was the year that they really take that cap space that they have and use it, which this offseason obviously was not the season to use the cap space. Kyle Davidson said it himself that he wanted to leave more roster spots for the younger guys and not really go out and make a bunch of moves in free agency, which he didn't, which for a lot of people, and myself included, was not exciting at first because that tells us that we're not really pushing for a playoff spot or anything this year for sure. But it'll be very exciting as a Blackhawks fan and just to watch. The young guys are going to get the keys to this team basically this year. Nazar will get good minutes. Bedard will get good minutes, obviously. But then some guys will have some more guys making debuts. Wouldn't be too surprised if Colton Dock makes some substantial minutes in the NHL this year, which could be very exciting, I think, as well. Yeah, and then it'll still be a mix. They have a good mix of some older guys. I mean, Foligno's 37. The rest of the guys are, and like the closest after that is he's basically. So you have really one older guy, and he's the captain and a really good leader, I think, for the Blackhawks. Really excited to see how the defense looks too. Lev Shinov will get hopefully his first full season. Korchinski is still finding his role in the NHL. And then Vlasic now signing a big contract. I think you'll start to see that come to fruition. I think the long-term contracts of Vlasic and Nazar will be steals in the long run. Right now, it seems like a lot of money to put into guys who are pretty young, but their value is only going to go up, and so their cost is only going up. So I think in a few years, you'll see that those are actually pretty good deals. And then, yeah, I think Spencer Knight, having a full season of Spencer Knight is going to make a huge difference for the Blackhawks, which might make too much of a difference if you're looking for the McKenna sweepstakes. I don't really see the Blackhawks finishing dead last this year, maybe in the Central, but I don't know about the whole league. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't see the Blackhawks being the worst team out there, but obviously not really making too many steps closer to the playoffs from the past years. I think Bedard's going to take a big step this year. Obviously, he still doesn't have too many guys to play with, but he only had 67 points last year. I think full healthy season. I think an 82-point season is like, and a point per game season is not out of the question for him. I think this is the year he starts to get in that pattern and hopefully continue that for years to come.
Yeah, looking at their younger talent, even in the AHL, potential players to come up and play in the NHL. You got Del Mastro on the defensive end, Oliver Moore, both very exciting players. You drafted Frendell this season. He looks really good. I think that's a beautiful thing with a rebuild. You have now prospects that can really do something, and now you're set up pretty nicely for the future. And you're only going to get better and better with these younger players.
Yeah, there's so many
Yeah,
positives in the Blackhawks prospect pool. Oliver Moore coming up is going to be a very solid player. Leshonov, I think, can be a top 6 for the Blackhawks. There was talks about him maybe wanting to make the team this year. It sounds like he will not be, and he'll be staying in Europe this year. So a little disappointing, but you don't want to rush something like that as well. And then Nick Lardis had an incredible season this past year in the CHL, being one of the point leaders in the CHL, upwards to 120 points, I believe. So he was over like 2 points a game. So obviously that doesn't translate exactly to the NHL, but I think he'll be a very solid player as well. So a lot of exciting players, and especially after this draft, the Blackhawks making a push to become a bigger team. Or you already have the tall guys on the defensive end, but made a few more draft picks too of taller guys. So in a few years, the Blackhawks are going to be a team to mess with the height and physicality, I think.
yeah. And as for the things I can see them getting better on going forward, and this keeps coming up every team we talk about, but their goaltending, yes, they have Spencer Knight, but they don't really have much other than that. There might be a couple that can throw in a few games, but you're not going to have a consistent night to night. You can play Spencer Knight, and then you can also play this guy, and you're guaranteed to win both nights. But yeah, I'd like to see some pickups in a goalie this season too.
Now, the age-old question for Chicago Blackhawks fan Jeremiah is this. We talked about how poorly I view Kyle Dubas as a GM for the Penguins. What do you think your GM is doing? Is he doing what he needs to do? Could he be doing more? Obviously, there's so much that you got to do on a rebuilding team. But what are your thoughts on a GM that obviously is young and has a lot to do to this team?
Yeah, I think, like I said, this season I would have liked him to start kind of trying to speed up the rebuild a little bit, but he also is very aware of when they tried to kind of hold off rebuild and speed up a rebuild to keep Kane and Taves kind of in that spectrum. That kind of messed things up for the long term and is something they're still working out of. Some of the moves that happened then. So I think he's very much aware of taking his time to make this team a good team for a long time, not just a playoff contender for a few years. So done a lot to build up the draft pick pool, and these last few years have had an abundance of draft picks and been able to make moves through that. So as these prospects come to fruition, I think overall it's hard to see the results, but he's building up the things. I wouldn't do everything the way he's been doing it, but I do trust the process, although it will be quite a process. Yeah, and I think also in the management perspective, Blackhawks will also be getting a new head coach to start the season. Coming from Detroit, when he coached in Detroit when they were kind of in a similar position with young talent. So supposedly he's a good coach for development of younger players. So that should be hopefully another positive going into the season for Chicago.
And I think just looking at this team, you certainly want to build it out more, but the rebuild has done very well, and I think you're almost to a point where you can still call it a rebuild because you're still not going to be amazing, but you're giving the keys to the younger guys, and the younger guys, it's to the point where you keep them around and the team improves as they improve. Like, it's not you got the guys now, I think, and a few years down the road, you're a top team in the NHL if these players do live up to their potential. Especially Bedard. I mean, I can see him being 2 years from now a top scorer in the NHL. If this team, if he gets weapons around him, he can be lethal.
Yeah, and there's talks already of Bedard and Nazar being the next Kane and Taves. Yeah, Nazar obviously very small sample size, but I have a lot of hope and good things to say about Nazar. There's almost more excitement around him than there's Bedard, because Bedard, there's more of an expectation that he's going to be hitting those numbers. Nazar, there's more of a like what could his ceiling be and what could he bring to the table? Because in a few years, I could see both of those guys easily being over a point per game, and sometimes that's all it takes, just a few guys up there. Hopefully, the Blackhawks have been bottom of the league these last few years in goals for. So just as a fan, just to have some more offense, whether they're winning games or not this year, is less of a big thing. But seeing that progression on the offensive end and the defensive end, getting those younger guys more comfortable at the NHL level. So now flipping over kind of to the other side of the Central Division, the Colorado Avalanche find themselves in a very different position. Chicago going to be towards the bottom of the Central, as most people will probably agree. Colorado in the runnings for the top of the Central, as they've been for a number of years now. So, the Colorado Avalanche coming off another year making the playoffs, but not going the distance. Yeah, a lot to talk about, I feel like, for the Avalanche, kind of where this team is going regular season wise and how this team gets over the hump in the playoffs as well.
Yeah, I want to start it off just by looking at the goalies. You have 28-year-old Mackenzie Blackwood. You have 33-year-old Wedgewood. I don't think Blackwood's good. I think he can be a starter, but I think you want a better goalie as your starter. He started last season on the Sharks. He had 3 goals against average and 911 save percentage. And then in 37 games played with the Colorado Avalanche, 233 goals against average, 913 save percentage. So those are good numbers, but I think you can get better at the goalie position, and I think that's something that would be really good for them because they have the offense, they have the defense. I mean, 2 dynamic players in McKinnon and Makar. You have Marty Nate just now. The team looks really good. I'd love to see him get better there. They got Brent Burns now, 40-year-old Brent Burns. I think this team's exciting. I mean, they have been good in the past. I think goaltending is where you want to improve to really get over that hump.
When your defenseman is your second in scoring points last year, you know he's pretty good. Just between McKinnon and Makar, there was over 200 points just between those two guys. So they've got a good thing going with those two just in themselves. And they've got a good depth as well in the rest of the team. Yeah, if they keep playing how they are and maybe clean up that goaltending, I could really see a run at the cup even.
Seeing Gabriel Landeskog come back in the postseason last year was pretty cool. He's had a rough go of things for quite some time, and it's interesting to me that they have him signed through 2029. Yeah, so he's going to be unrestricted free agent that year, but he's signed through for quite some time. Does he become a regular fixture in the play, or is he still kind of stay as a lower player? It's interesting to me to see how that goes, but I think that the Avalanche are still definitely to be labeled as cup contenders. They are a good team, and I think that if they can just get over a couple little bumps in the postseason, they can run for the cup.
Yeah, and I would agree with Levi about the goaltending. The goaltending could obviously get better, but I do think your defense kind of lightens the load on that goaltending. Obviously, both of those goaltenders come from not as great defensive franchise, and their numbers dropped considerably once they got to Colorado. So obviously, I think the defense will help out those goaltenders. You'd probably like someone a little bit better, but I think the two of them can kind of work in tandem a little bit. And yeah, you hope that they continue to progress. Because yeah, you did see a lot of improvement from coming to Colorado. That defensive core is very solid. Makar's known as more of a offensive defenseman, obviously, but really good on the defensive end as well. Has been for a while. And then Burns brings that veteran presence on the defensive end as well. So you have, well, he probably won't be putting up as much of like numbers and efficiency wise. He's there to bring up those guys. And then I think they made some good pickups. Olofsson will be a good help to their bottom 6. I think will fit in there well. I think overall this team, in my opinion, probably got a little bit better from last year. Just in the all around aspect, I feel like some aspects are probably a little worse than last year, but some of the pickups I think make this team sitting in a better spot. I think the Central Division is going to be very competitive and very very tough to be at the top of it. But I do think Colorado is a very solid team. And yeah, one of the reasons why the Western Conference is so difficult, you've got teams like this outside of your division leaders probably. Although I could see Colorado getting there, there's just the Central is going to be very tough, as I said.
Yeah.
But you've got these teams, these Central Division opponents have to mess with these teams many times every year. So
Yeah, and also a full season with Brock Nelson. Came to the Avalanche, I believe, around the trade deadline. Could be wrong. But yeah, from the Islanders, he was on the Islanders all of his career. In only 19 games with the Avalanche, put up 13 points. He's certainly got stuff left. Having a full season with him, I think he can build up this team. He's an older guy, the veteran presence to know what to do. And I think this team has that presence to know what to do in the playoffs. They're a very experienced team, I think. But it's always good to have more experience, and I think that's what you're looking for in Brock Nelson, to put some points up, but also help the younger guys and bring this team to that next level.
I think one of the other, I don't know if you could say concerns or intrigues with this team is, can Nathan MacKinnon continue to put up the numbers he's been putting up? I mean, you've come to expect it from him, but you kind of also feel like he's got to slow down at some point. So interested to see how he handles this season, coming off another amazing season. Yeah, very interested to see what that looks like for him, because he's been a leader on this team for a long time, and you've got some younger guys coming up. So interested to see how that gets evened out. You can't really ask for more than last season, but we'll see if there's any regression or if he's kind of right back where he was and where he's been for many years. Now moving on to another team that is in the running there with Colorado towards the top of the Central Division and have been for quite some time, the Dallas Stars. Dallas Stars always seem to be one of the teams to beat. Last year were very strong contender for, obviously didn't win the Central Division, but came as a very strong team out of the Central and still look very good in a lot of regards.
You re-sign some people. You get Rantanen on an 8-year contract. You get Jamie Benn on a contract. I don't know if that's really what you want to do with your money, but you get Wyatt Johnston on a 5-year contract. Very good player. 71 points in 82 games last season. Very, very solid. Sign Lindell to a 5-year. You got a lot of new contracts. You like to see it. You have Ottinger on a 8-year contract now. All that said, I don't think they're going to be as good as they were last season. I don't think they'll produce as much. That's possible second line, Sagan, Duchesne, and Ben. I don't think that'll produce too much. I think building out that top 6 could definitely be a thing, especially with Sagan, Ben, and Duchesne. They're getting older, especially Jamie Benn, and at some point you have to kind of think about moving away from him. I get you still want them on the team because they're very good. They're good players still, no doubt, but you're certainly going to have to move away from that pretty soon. I think Rantanen will play amazing on this team. I mean, he showed that in the playoffs. He was absolutely nasty.
Yeah,
so
and you get a full season of Rantanen too, which they didn't have obviously this past year. So that's one of the things that is the same but different for Dallas.
Yeah, hopefully he stays healthy the whole season. But yeah, it looks good. You got Hintz, you got Robertson. Jason Robertson is all right. I think he's dropped off a little bit from a few years ago where he was doing really, really well. I might just be saying that because I had him on my fantasy hockey and he didn't really do that well.
I think saying 80 points in 82 games is all right is kind of crazy, but
true. But he is their guy, I think, and he needs to be their guy. They're number 1 for sure.
I feel like Dallas is one of those teams that you just don't hear much about. I don't know if it's because all the teams contributing or what, but like the Avalanche, they've got MacKinnon. Dallas, you just hear about Dallas being good. They have a very well-rounded team, and it could be I'm a Wild fan and I just don't want to pay attention to Dallas. But every year I'm like, they're in the playoffs, they're doing good. I don't like that. But yeah, they're just the past few years they've just been really hitting it, and yeah, I think they're coming to the end of that guaranteed playoff spot. I mean, the Blackhawks are moving up. I feel like in the next few years they're going to start moving down. There's a couple other teams moving up as well, but like I see a couple older people like Ben and stuff. I get it. Keep Ben. He's been with you the entire his career. A great player, but he's getting older. You're not gonna want to keep him around forever. And yeah,
I think at the same time, though, if you're in the situation of Dallas, you can afford to keep those guys around. You just have to expect that they're going to be dropping down to third and fourth liners. But there's no problem having older guys on a team. Like, that's what makes a good playoff team. You just have to understand that those aren't going to be your ones and twos anymore, and that there's going to be other guys stepping in to fill their shoes. But I don't necessarily say you have to completely move on from them. I think you've seen that so many times with players that go their whole career with one team. They're not expected to be first and second liners their whole career with one team. Those last few years are going to be a little bit less workload. I do think my biggest, I guess, flaw that I see in Dallas is probably their defense. It doesn't seem as deep as their offense and goaltending. Still really good and better than a good amount of the teams in the NHL. But I think if there was anything to point out in Dallas, I would say probably there, because Haskin and Lindell, very solid top pairing. Harley was very good this past season too. But I just feel like as you work your way down, there's kind of more significant gap in the skill level there, and like the depth in the defense. Ottinger and DeSmith are going to be really good. Obviously, the more workload will be on Ottinger. And obviously, there was a lot of discussion after that, after how the playoffs went with Dallas and that whole situation. They've committed to Ottinger being their number one, and I feel like every year he'll come up in conversation about how good he is. Every year he's one of the goalies to beat, especially by the time the playoffs come around. So signing him to 8 years, you've committed to him being your number one. But DeSmith is going to be able to put in some good games in there as well to lighten the workload on Ottinger as well. I mean, Ottinger I think played 50 to 60 games last year, and DeSmith was able to help carry the rest of that workload too. So I think, yeah, there's a lot of good things to say about Dallas. A lot of people I feel like have them finishing first in the Central this year. So yeah, I don't know. It's tough to make a call between those teams. Obviously, I will have to by the end of next episode. But yeah, I think there's a lot to like about Dallas. Obviously, a few things to clean up, but I think things that are minor enough that they can be cleared up as the season progresses in order for them to be ready for the playoffs.
Luke and Levi, you're wrong. I'm going to disagree with you. Dallas is still very much a consistent team who is going to make the Western Conference Final this year. They are not going to make the Cup, but they still have a lot of good players. You guys are hating on them because nobody talks about them. The Dallas Stars.
I hate them.
Well, I'm well aware you hate them. You have right to. Dallas stole Minnesota's first NHL franchise, but we don't have to get into that. The Stars are a good team. They have everything they need. Jake the Otter Ottinger made some insane saves in the postseason. He was really good. Casey DeSmith is a really good fallback goaltender when Ottinger needs a break in the postseason or in the regular season. DeSmith has really come in. He never really had a chance to do it with the Penguins, and I think he's really found a team where he can be a good, consistent backup goaltender.
Yeah, and I don't think you hear about him. Like, looking at his numbers, I was like, he's put up some very solid numbers for a backup.
Yeah.
Flies under the radar, obviously, behind Ottinger.
But nobody talks about the Dallas Stars. They're a good team. Nobody talks. Does anybody remember that Tyler Seguin was a Boston Bruin? Like, nobody talks about Tyler Seguin. He's an older guy now, but he's still putting players older in this aspect of a goalie. He's 33. He's not old. We say that so much when we talk about players. But they've got good players that can put them deep in the postseason. And because we're going to talk about the Edmonton Oilers later, I'm not going to go super deep. But the Edmonton Oilers don't have what it takes to be a three-peat runner-up. They're not making it all the way this year. They don't have the goaltending. I don't think they can somehow waltz their way into the Western Conference Final again, because that's the only reason Dallas didn't make the Stanley Cup Final. They ran into the Edmonton Oilers. Dallas is underrated. End of discussion.
I gotta clarify. I didn't mean they're not gonna make it this year. I meant they're coming up on the end of not making it to the playoffs. I did not say this year was not their year.
I'm going to be honest and a little bit biased. I think the Wild are going to be better than the Dallas Stars. I'm going to put that out there.
We'll get to that.
Hey, maybe that means it's another first-round exit for the Wild. But we're going to be better in the regular season. We're going to have Kirill Kaprizov healthy the whole season. Jesper, you know what? We'll get into the Wild in a little bit.
We're almost there. We're almost there.
Dallas Stars first. Sorry.
I think from the roster standpoint, I was thinking about this already in our conversation with Colorado. Edmonton is obviously the blueprint kind of the Western Conference winning back to back. Goaltending has not never been considered the strong suit in Edmonton, and it is kind of shown that they are like, I mean, Skinner can give you very good games, obviously, but it kind of showed their offense is more powerful, and I think Colorado can be kind of compared to that. I mean, they don't have a goaltender who's a star goaltender. I feel like in similarity with the Oilers, I can be similar. Dallas Stars are very different in that regards. Otger is a star goaltender in the NHL. The offense is obviously not at the caliber of, say, the Edmonton Oilers, but I feel like you're in a better spot, well rounded. Yeah, and obviously with everything, you can have really good season. It comes down to the playoffs. We've seen that in the past few years for Dallas. So yeah, figuring that out. But obviously, every year they've been there is more and more experience. So yeah, I can see Dallas going deep in the playoffs as well. And yeah, I really am fairly confident in saying that they're going to be a playoff team. Although the Central is very competitive, and the top 3 and 4 spots are very, I feel like, fluid with those teams. There could be a lot of moving around, but
Underrated.
now getting into the team we already talked about, and came up a lot in regards to the Dallas Stars.
I wonder why.
Wild. We have 2 Wild fans on this podcast, so this should be an interesting segment.
I'm gonna Levi take over. He's gonna probably go on a rant for like half an hour. So
You're dang right, buddy. We are nice. Don't sleep on us. Kirill the Thrill Kaprizov is gonna go off this season. There is no doubt he was gonna have an MVP season last season if he didn't get injured. We have him and Matt Boldy are absolutely nasty. Matt Boldy, only 24 years old. He is a really, really good player. Kept Rossi around. You got 21-year-old Jurov, played in the KHL last season, had 25 points in 46 games. I think he's going to be making the jump to the NHL. You have Liam Ogren, played a little bit for us, I believe, last season. Could be wrong. Another young guy. You got Carson Lambos in the minors. Another guy that might not make that jump. He might make that jump, though. It's possible. You got Riley Heated, drafted in the Bedard draft, put up 90 points in 60 games for the Prince George Cougars in the WHL. You have Zeev Buem, Brock Faber, you have Gustafson, you have Jesper Wallstead. You just signed Leeson yesterday.
Bro.
I like it, bro. I like it. It looks good. Stay healthy. Everyone knows we're a high-powered team, but especially when we're healthy, we are a very high-powered team. And I think the possibility of getting some of the prospects into the play too as well is very exciting. This draft, no first-round picks, but you did pick up Theodore Hallsquist, Swedish defenseman. I really like him. Played with Frundell a little bit on the Sweden U18 team. Really like the look of him. So yeah, everything didn't go out as planned. Let me try that again. Not everything went perfectly this season. Draft and everything, of course, especially the regular season, a lot of injuries. Ended in disappointment in the playoffs. Of course, first round exit for
You guys totally should have beat
50th
Vegas.
time in a row. Feels like. But you also have now it's getting to a point where you know you're good. You just gotta do it. We have done it, and now we just gotta really finish it because we're right there. We're knocking on the door. I think if we get past the first round, we're good. Let's get past the first round, focus on that. But I think we're gonna be a playoff team. I think all the guys we're adding, all of the guys we're obviously keeping. I can't really say Matt Boldy's gonna have a breakout year because he already did last season. Put up almost a point per game. He's really good. Having Kirill Kaprizov the whole season, having Joel Eriksson the whole season, young at defenseman. I like the look of us really a lot.
if we can stay healthy, we're gonna go far. That is the bottom line. If we get injured, it's gonna be the same thing as last year. But if we stay healthy, we're going far. That's literally the bottom line. We got a good team. We just need to stay healthy.
Of the Minnesota Wild, the Toronto Maple Leafs of the Western Conference.
No.
They're getting there.
You guys are a really good team. I like the Minnesota Wild. They've always been fun to watch until the postseason. But you guys, obviously, the biggest, I think forechecking in hockey is so big. And I think that the Minnesota Wild's forecheck in the postseason against the Vegas Golden Knights was some of the best forechecking I've seen, the best dump and chase hockey I've seen in a postseason team that lost. And the reason I say that is because a lot of teams don't a lot of teams who win and go far don't use the forecheck. They don't use the forecheck to the same extent as the Minnesota Wild rely on it. They don't use a dump and chase hockey as much as the Minnesota Wild rely on it, or they don't do it right. And yeah, the biggest thing for the Minnesota Wild is Joel Eriksson going to be a guaranteed 82 games this season, or is he just going to run into injuries? Matt Zuccarello, Marcus Foligno, Ryan Hartman, all players that have had injury issues in the past and are also not young. Matt Zuccarello is 38 years old. How many more years does he have left? Remember his days with the Rangers. Obviously, I would think he's better with the Minnesota Wild than he was with the Rangers, but obviously you can disagree. I think it's important that the Minnesota Wild were able to re-sign Marco Rossi. That's a huge thing for them. And the biggest thing, other than injuries staring them in the face, this is Kirill Kaprizov's last year. Did they have enough money to sign him?
You see, gonna go on another. It's a tiny rant here.
Because Bill Guerin, I don't think Bill Guerin wants to re-sign him. I don't think he wants to spend that kind of money.
I guarantee he will spend that money, because if he didn't, he'd be fired. Kirill Kaprizov is the face of this team. He's 28, so he started a little bit later than you would like him to, I guess. But he's still the face of this team. One of the best offensive players in the NHL. There's no doubt about that. If he plays a full 82 games, he's going to have 100 points. We have finally gotten free of the buyout of Ryan Suter and Zach Parise. We finally have money. We're sitting, I think that's to a point, we're sitting pretty. Of course, you can never have enough money in hockey. You always want more money so you can keep these guys around. But getting that money back was huge.
You still have 3 years for Ryan Suter and Zach Parise yet.
I don't think so.
I think it's a lot. The contract is mostly gone, though. I think it's
only 800. It's only 833,000. So you're saving money. Plus, you're under
$1 million for those guys now, which you were paying.
You have $4 million. You have $4 million in cap space. You do have money.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be guaranteed the number one thing that we're going to try and pick up. Zuccarello, this is his last year. I could definitely probably see him going. It's probably just going to have to happen.
Dude, he is such a good player in the postseason.
He is. And that's the thing, you were talking about dump and chase hockey. It's because of the size. We have a lot of size on this team. Boldy's 6'4", I believe. Eriksson X 6'2", maybe? I don't know. We have size and we have grit. That's the thing. Anyone will do it. Like Kaprizov, you don't think of him as a really gritty player, but if he has to do something, he'll do it. And I think that's the thing. Everybody on this team knows they have to do it. Didn't say anything about this. Adding the likes of Tarasenko, I don't know how big of a move that's going to be. I hope it pans out really well. But yeah, I'm excited.
I was just going to ask, is Marcus Foligno, obviously he's been with you for a while now, is Marcus Foligno and Vladimir Tarasenko just there for physicality, or are they there to do something?
Marcus Foligno is probably there for just physicality. But physicality and leadership. He could be.
He is a good leader.
He could be our captain.
Yeah.
I don't think he will be, but he's such a good guy, and he's so fun. Like, he's just a fun guy. I think if you're a younger guy, you'd want to be alongside him playing on this team.
Foligno is a spark plug on this team. I feel like this past year was one of the first years in a bit that Minnesota had to make a playoff push.
Yeah.
Because of all the injuries. They got their guys back and were like, oh boy, we got to grind to get there. And like, they played a lot of playoff hockey before playoff hockey in that regard, and Foligno would get the guys going, whether that be a big hit, fight, whatever. Regardless, even without the physicality, Foligno is a spark plug for this team, and I think without him, you don't see that playoff push. So I think he's a critical, a huge role on this team.
And you could see Tarasenko as he's not going to do much. Only 33 points in 80 games on the Red Wings. I think we'll take 30 points out of him this season. That's fine. We have other players to do the scoring. As long as he's doing his role, getting some points and playing hockey, we're happy. I think it's not about, okay, he's not as good as he once was, obviously, but he's still a great player, and I think he's still going to show that this season. I'm not worried about him at all. I think that'll pan out.
Yeah. I think Minnesota is building a team that hopefully is not dying out for their sake. I feel like that was maybe the concern. I mean, when you're young, your star young player was Kaprizov coming in as not as young as most people come into to that role. And it's hard to get good prospects and build up a young core when you're still trying to be competitive in the playoffs because that's not really your focus. But they've done a really good job. Marco Rossi now in there, obviously Brock Faber. They brought in some younger guys, so you do have some younger guys to hopefully continue the momentum as you start to see some of these guys um, work their way out of the team and out of the league. So I think you're working your way there. I do think you're kind of still in a tough spot. Like it's still kind of scary the next few years. Could be some regression, but hopefully those guys can lighten that load. But I do think you have such a good variety in Minnesota. You have some like middle-aged guy. I mean, Kaprizov's got the experience already, even though he's considered one of your younger guys still.
Yeah.
And then you have now some guys on the not the very old side of things. You've got Tarasenko, who has years of NHL experience. You've got Foligno, you've got Zuccarello. You've got lots of guys who have a lot of experience. So like, I think you've got kind of the three different sections: the young guys, the middle-aged guys, and the veterans. So for that reason, I think it does work out well. Biggest thing is staying injury free. I
Yeah.
think some even like experts, NHL experts, have the Minnesota Wild missing the playoffs. I don't know if I see the teams behind them really moving up. That's the biggest thing for me. But based on last season, I think people thought that was the regression. I think the biggest thing last year that held them back was the injuries.
Yeah.
So I think with a healthy season, this team is back where they were before and less of a panic mode.
They were a really good team before the injury bug hit them.
Yeah.
They were a really good team.
They were top of the league. Kaprizov was absolutely going crazy. He was going to have an MVP season. And then, injuries completely wrecked us.
Yeah, and I think Gustafsson playing like a very solid season will be an important thing too, because he's a good goaltender. I feel like there's moments of inconsistency, but then you do have I don't know how I feel about the defense. You have kind of a mix of
this is something I want to
better
say.
and kind of more mediocre players.
You got Faber, 23. You got Buum, who's 19. You got Jurek. I probably said that wrong. Who's 21. You have Middleton, who's only 29. But then you do have Spurgeon, who's 35.
Who doesn't stay healthy?
You have some older guys, but you have a 19-year-old defenseman. You have a 19-year-old defenseman that's going to be coming in and playing. We saw him do it in the playoffs. He played good in the playoffs.
Unlike the hate we got on the Carolina Hurricanes of not having any young people down the pipeline, the Minnesota Wild have a pipeline. Sorry, Hurricanes fans, you just don't. The Wild have a pipeline, and they are going to use it to their advantage because I don't think it's going to save them if they run into the injury bug again. But I don't know. I just don't see them not being a part of either fringe postseason team or postseason team for at least another 3-4 years.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We're going to have to start losing some of these older guys like Spurgeon, but you have 3 young defensemen already. We drafted a Swedish defenseman this year. I don't think he's going to be playing this season in the NHL, but we have guys to come up very quickly. And if you're worried about the offense more than the defense, I would say we have better offensive prospects than we have defensive prospects. I'm not worried at all. I think we're not in a rebuild. We're not in the powerhouse conversations at all. But we're fine with being here every season.
You're going to have to figure out your goalie situation within the next 2 years.
Yeah.
Because Gustafsson's on his last contract, and Wallsted's got 2 years left. So you're going to have to figure that out, but maybe have a go at it this year.
Yeah, I honestly think...
I don't think Bill Guerin's got to be too aggressive. Just keep everybody healthy and utilize the players that you have and really take a crack at getting far in the postseason. Again, the Western Conference is so much different than the Eastern Conference. That's why we've praised every one of these teams that we've talked about today, because there's good aspects to every one of the teams, because every one of these teams is totally different type of hockey in the Western Conference than the Eastern Conference. I'm not saying that all these teams are better than Eastern Conference teams, but there is so much positive to go off of from these teams. We utilize the fact that injuries break a team, because they do. Nobody can deny that. Injuries will break a team, and the Minnesota Wild need to figure the injury bug out so that they can then figure out this whole first-round exit stuff that they've been struggling with forever. Because then they can become relevant and respected.
I think I'm not worried about us missing the playoffs this year. It can happen with injuries, of course. Anything can happen in the NHL. I'm confident in our team. I think we have good future. We have good depth right now. I really like how Bill Gurn has handled all this. He's done really well. I have no complaints to him. Obviously we're not in a rebuild like the Blackhawks, so like it's not as hard, of course. But I'm happy how he's handled it. He's kept the players around and he's maintained the team, and you love to see it because I think we're a team that execution is needed. I think we could have beat the Vegas Golden Knights this past season, and I didn't hate how we played. It just didn't happen. I think we'll make the playoffs, and I think we can do something in the playoffs. We just got to execute.
I think we said this for a lot of teams in the Central, but like specifically for the Minnesota Wild, you kind of see how the season plays out and then take a shot at it. Like if you're able to get a start like you did last year and in this year be healthy, you kind of enter that contender category. But I think most of the time Minnesota will never really enter the season as considered a contender. They're always in striking distance, and year to year that kind of you see how that plays out. But I think in the Western Conference, with how stacked it is, you want to be a deep team, but at the same time you could be a fluky team. Just putting yourself in a spot, getting in the playoffs, anything can happen. You saw St. Louis a few years ago like go very deep when they were not the best team in the Western Conference. So for the Minnesota Wild, I think just putting yourself in a spot, giving yourself a chance, and I think there's a good possibility you can with the guys you have make a good run of it.
Get the monkey off the back.
One thing I have to say about how we played in the playoffs, and if we make the playoffs again this year, don't take stupid penalties. That was if there was a reason we lost, that was the reason. Because we'd go and hit somebody, and then our stick would be up in their face, and Mark Stone would flop and be a penalty. Okay.
Calm down. We know nobody likes Mark Stone. End of discussion.
So as we already have seen in this first half of the Central Division, the Western Conference is going to be very fun to talk about, and the rest of the Central Division got some very intriguing teams. Asheville, who knows what could happen to them, Mammoth, Blues. So next episode is going to be a good one as well. The second half of the Central Division, we'll also get into our final Central Division picks, and then we'll still have the Pacific Division to get to before we get to the regular season, and hockey is back. So subscribe if you haven't yet. We got more stuff coming. So we'll see you next time. Peace.